That's good. That's those are the main chutes.
Main chute deploy.
The main chutes, when fully
We're
deployed,
at 5,000 feet.
roughly the size of a football field. 3 different parachutes here.
Search and recovery beacon has been activated on integrity.
Feet of surface area.
And we have 3 good main chutes.
Now they're in really good
Good
shape.
3 main chutes, good briefing, good descent rate.
Right, and we see 3 good-looking parachutes.
Just like the previous 10 days for the mission.
Right.
Integrity, cabin pressure indicates no need for hydrazine checks.
Integrity copies.
The next big test here is when
This is a perfect descent for integrity. Its crew sounding Hale and Hardy on board.
integrity
Time to
touches down.
splash down 1 minute, 15 seconds.
Will it be right side up or upside down? And that is the big question here. And bags will deploy, 5 of them, filled with helium, around the circumference of the spacecraft in order to right it if it lands upside down. If it lands
Integrity
right side
about
up,
to complete a
all
journey
okay.
spanning 694,481 miles from its launch from the Kennedy Space Center back on April 1st and a trip around the moon.
This is the first time the Orion capsule is doing this.
No, the first Artemis mission, it was the Orion capsule, but with no crew members on it. We're about a minute out to splashdown, and so far the timing has been really good. The estimate was that this was happen at 7:07:07 Central Time in Houston.
Passing through 1,000 feet.
There.
And the naval vessel, I mean, they are right there. They are not far from the splashdown.
All very close to the ship. It seems they have this.
Wow.
And there's touchdown.
There it is.
Should be about 60 miles or so, I think, from San Diego. And this is the view from the USS John North.
Splashdown, sending post-landing command now. Splashdown confirmed.
So now they have teams who are already on the water who will go to them. They'll have divers who will check the outside.
There are 4 Navy helicopters standing by on the USS John North. 2 are camera ships, 2 are part of the recovery operation here.
The chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth.
Incredible.
And the landing and support officer reports the vehicle is stable 1. We still will be deploying the crew module uprighting system to maintain that orientation. A perfect bullseye splashdown for Integrity and its 4 astronauts.
The reference there, of course, of the helium bags that I referred to before, obviously not needed in this case because the Integrity and Orion capsule is upright. Would be needed if it was upside down. They're still going to do the test anyway on this long litany of milestones and tests on what has essentially been a 10-day long test flight of the Space Launch System and the Orion capsule, paving the way to Artemis III in 2027. If anything here went wrong, this would have pushed the timeline.
The unofficial splashdown time, 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m. Central Time. We'll get that refined for you. That would put the end of the mission at a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 35 seconds.
And one critical aspect of this is going to be to take a close look at the heat shield and do the necessary
And we're
analysis,
configuring for very low
make sure it
data rate.
performed as they expected. After Artemis I, that was so critical because it was
Once
clear
again,
that
splashdown occurring in the Pacific, southwest of San Diego at 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m.
Integrity Houston, comm check on VLDR.
boats are there
Those
fast.
boats, divers,
These are the fast
with
boats.
medical personnel as well on them to
crew on board Orion.
Perfect communications is
The likelihood, we're going to hear from NASA, is that casino return will be closed down.
Yeah, there's a full medical team on the boat to check them out.
Reed Wiseman reporting 4 green crew members. That is not their complexion. That is the fact that they're in great condition. That's what that means.
She's probably
So
sitting right
stable
next to
one,
the hatch.
upright. The crew module uprighting system is being deployed. The 5 airbags being inflated through helium to maintain the upright configuration for the vehicle. This was a textbook entry and a textbook touchdown for integrity. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen back on Earth after a journey around the moon.
What does that feel like? I mean, after being in space, yeah, it sounds like being on the water to just being home and having gone through a re-entry. I mean, they're hitting the water, say 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's like a 20-mile-an-hour car
The car crash. My 4 missions were all aboard the space shuttle, so I didn't experience anything like this. But I will say, like, emotionally, and they should be, right? Incredibly proud of what they've accomplished, the mission. They must be a little bit sad that it's over. You know, I felt that way when I came back from space. But they're also looking forward to seeing their families again and having the opportunity to talk to people about this.
I think they may be a little deconditioned as well. Yeah.
What were you saying?
They may be a little deconditioned, so they may, their inner ear is probably going a little crazy, but they're feeling great on that. Just it's probably slightly wobbly, but it's normal. It's normal.
How long does that last?
Well, it depends on how long you're in space as well. Like on the shorter duration missions, you do come back deconditioned, but the longer you're away, you're probably a little more deconditioned. Say 100 days, 200 days, you're a lot more deconditioned. And so it takes a little longer to come back, maybe 6 months. I'll say that from my experience, but for the shorter duration, probably, I'm not sure what you would say, Mark.
I would say it seems to be about the amount of time you spent in space is about the time it takes to recover. Because I know, just speaking to my brother about this, who was in space for a year, he felt it was a year before he got back to Earth.
And Dr. Evans, you were saying it took you about 6 months?
It took a little longer than that, but in general, 95% back, about 6 months. Yeah.
We also have Dr. Garrett Reisman, former astronaut. Dr. Reisman, what was it like for you returning?
Well, I was really scared coming back because the guy that was on the controls of the spacecraft on my first landing was a guy sitting right next to you, Mark Kelly, and but we had a much
Perfect landing.
It was a perfect landing. We had it easy compared to what these guys just went through. I mean, we didn't pull much more than a G. They reached up to 3.9, and we were coming in a lot slower. We're at Mach 25. They're at Mach 35. So we didn't have parachutes. It was much more gentlemanly the way we came back. So they had quite a wild ride, and they must be so happy right now. And Anderson, I also think they're kind of relieved. You know, we have a lot of confidence when the NASA engineers do their homework and tell us that they've done the analysis and everything's going to be okay. But you're still in your head, you still know that there were problems the last time we did this around this entry period with the heat shield. So I'm sure that didn't escape their notice. And now sitting there in the ocean, there must be a sense of relief and just exultation and a sense of victory that they got through that and everything went great. I mean, it was just perfect.
How long do you think, Garrett, that they're going to be in that capsule waiting before the hatch is open?
I don't think it's going to be that much longer. I think they're going to deploy a kind of a porch, is what I heard, like an inflatable porch, and then they're going to be plucked out by the helicopters one by one, and then only a few minutes to get them on the deck of the ship. So, they have a couple checks to go through. The boats out there are sniffing for hydrazine to make sure there's no leaks of that toxic fuel, and as long as that's all clear, I think the helicopters will come in pretty soon.
But Pete, I mean, you can't understate this. Given the problems with the heat shield on Artemis I, which they say in the analysis they did, even if there had been humans on board, they would have been okay on Artemis I if it was carrying astronauts, which it wasn't. But given those problems, there were concerns about the heat shield this time. It seems like there may, obviously, as you said, Kelly, that's got to be examined, but they're okay.
There were definite concerns, but the news that they were okay, the jubilation in Mission Control in the press room that we're hearing, one comms was reestablished after the 6-minute blackout was widespread. Of course, NASA will want to know whether or not it's change in the angle of attack, essentially the change in the bite that the spacecraft was going to take first when it skipped off the atmosphere and then came into the atmosphere, if that really worked to make it so that the heat shield did not take as much abuse for essentially a shorter period of time. It was going to be hotter, but a shorter period of time, less distance traveled to the splashdown site. Those tweaks were made between Artemis 1 and Artemis 2. Will they have to make more tweaks between Artemis 2 and Artemis 3? And there have been so many questions around whether or not the heat shield would really stand up to this. So far, it seems like a successful test, but of course they'll have to dig into it more, and there was a Tiger team put on this case after Artemis 1.
It's worth noting, as Pete just mentioned, when Artemis 1 came down and was floating in the ocean, it looked perfect as well. It looked just like this. And it was only when they brought it aboard and looked at the bottom at the heat shield that they saw that big chunks were missing. So I think it's too soon to tell exactly how well the heat shield did, but the important thing, of course, is that the crew is safe and we had a successful entry. We'll learn a little bit more, and they're also the heat shield on the next the next Orion vehicle will be different. They do intend to redesign it. They just didn't have time to do that before this mission, so they had this operational workaround. But they will be improving the heat shield for future missions.
Assets were able to pick up.
What do you see Dr. Roberts, what do you see on re-entry?
Well, as we were coming back on the Dragon, you're at an angle and you're coming in and you see a light show through the window. I mean, the friction that of compressing the atmosphere and on the ionized gas around the vehicle, you could see a light show at the windows, and you can start feeling the force of gravity on your body.
But is there any temperature change inside?
No, you don't feel any temperature change on the inside. So you're just coming through, you could hear the noise of just it's like a light show. I don't even know how to describe exactly what we see. But you can see everything happening, you can feel it, but it's not, the temperature inside is perfectly comfortable. We do have our visors down, we're buttoned up in our suits, and we're in the seats. We're pretty comfortable.
This is a dumb question, but are you